Hello and welcome to Asian Insider. I'm Ravi, and my guest is Professor Tomohiko Taniguchi, who was the foreign policy advisor to the cabinet of the late Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. In this podcast, we discuss the remarkable rise of Sanae Takaichi as Japan's Prime Minister, the first woman to hold the position. Ms Takaichi served in Mr. Abe's cabinet and is widely seen as his protege. And for this reason, there is no better person to discuss what she means for Japan and the world than my friend, Professor Taniguchi. Tom Taniguchi, welcome to Asian Insider. It's a pleasure to do this podcast with you.
Thank you. Thank you for always having me. Good to see you again.
Tom, you and I were co contributors to a book that paid tribute to the late Shinzo Abe. How much of Abe-san is there in Sanae Takaichi? She's often mentioned as a protege.
Yes, she entered Japanese politics as a member of the lower house in the same year as Shinzo Abe did so, joining the House of Representatives as a lawmaker. So they have been friends with each other. But it is obvious that Sanae Takaichi has been very close to Shinzo Abe uh, when it comes to her thoughts and ideas about economic management, diplomacy, national security. But it does not necessarily mean that these two individuals were close in the sense that they often had dinner together or they often had wine together. Indeed, Sanae Takaichi was known to be much less interested in socializing with her own colleagues within her own party and beyond. Rather, she uh, was widely known to be a policy mania, if I may use that word, because it was customary for her to bring back a huge pile of policy documents with her to her own parliamentary dormitory and spend hours delving into those documents. So, yes, Sanae Takaichi is still following the footsteps that Shinzo Abe uh, had. And when it comes to economic policy, diplomacy, national security, their ideas overlap with each other very much. But she is a protege of a special kind in the sense that I just mentioned.
Tom, what does her elevation mean for Japan?
Right. You might want me to say that she is the first ever female prime minister in a country where its parliamentary system dates back to more than 100 years ago. Yes, indeed, it's been an encouraging development, certainly for working adult women. But she is the person who has not wanted to sort of highlight her being a feminine, her being a female member of the parliament. Uh, and she openly said that she wants to be remembered not as the first female prime minister, but as a very strong prime minister. So it is telling.
What did you make of her first fortnight in office?
The first fortnight in office has been, may I say, rather remarkably successful because luck worked. Uh, upon assuming the office as prime minister, she went to join the
Mhm.
Asean meetings in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and she met a number of ASEAN leaders. And because it is rarity. A lot of ASEAN leaders greeted her very much warmly with open arms. So she had a very good, successful beginning as her diplomatic career, which was followed immediately after that by welcoming Donald J. Trump from the United States. So it is simply a coincidence, but it was very much a lucky coincidence for her. And given the fact that Donald J. Trump is volatile, difficult to deal with, and his temper is unpredictable, then Sanae Takaichi, I must say, has done a great job in bringing herself very close to Donald J. Trump. So I'll stop here, but it's been a great beginning for her.
That's right. As you know too well, because you were very much in the thick of it yourself, Shinzo Abe had a wonderful first meeting with Donald Trump that set the tone for Japan's relationship with the United States for the next 4 years or maybe even 8 years. How would you compare that meeting with Sanae Takaichi's meetings with Donald Trump?
Uh, Donald Trump particularly likes someone who is willing to take risks, who conceals very little, and who is straightforward and a hard line. Shinzo Abe fit that qualification very, very well. And I think having seen Sanae Takaichi standing next to Donald J. Trump, surrounded by hundreds of sailors and officers of the U.S. military, Navy, jumping and cheering. Donald J. Trump must have seen her as someone willing to take risks, as someone willing to work closely with him. So I do think that Donald J. Trump now has remembered the name of Sanae Takaichi, whereas he elaborately chose not to remember the name of the previous Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba.
I see. Now, aside from the cosmetics, what do you think were the key outcomes of that meeting? Did she persuade Mr. Trump to stay the course on the key bilateral relationship, which is founded on the defense relationship? And would you say the alliance is safe and secure?
It's too early for anyone to say anything like that in a concrete way. The thing that I should say is that Sanae Takaichi must meet Donald J. Trump and his close allies and aides as frequently as possible, because Donald J. Trump changes his ideas, and his ideas are fluctuating and volatile, which is why Shinzo Abe took an extra amount of effort by playing golf with Donald Trump, uh, with an idea that in the golf course, by playing together with Donald J. Trump, Shinzo Abe was able to spend more hours than otherwise with Donald J. Trump, during which he was able to say the same thing again and again and again to Donald J. Trump, that the United States must stay engaged in the Indo Pacific affairs. I
Right.
think Sanae Takaichi, who is not a golfer, so she must be creative in getting across the same sort of messages repeatedly to Donald Trump.
Right. There's been this talk from Trump of a G2. And how seriously does Japan view this talk about a G2 between the US and China?
Well, that's originally, as you know, an idea that Xi Jinping pushed forward, saying that the Pacific Ocean is big enough to accommodate two big powers. So the order of two state condominium is the kind of order that Japan does not want to have at all cost, because under the in those circumstances, it would mean that Japan would become a fully uh, integral part within the sphere of influence of China. So, for a country that has done an elaborately uh, separating herself, Japan, from the continental influence and power, this scenario could be one of those nightmarish ones. So, in order for this scenario not to be materialized, it is imperative, again, for Sanae Takaichi to constantly get engaged in serious conversations with Donald Trump, while at the same time building its own uh, power, military, economy, politics, and so on.
Right. So, since you brought up the matter of defense and military power, what should the world expect of Sanae Takaichi by way of defense?
It's safe to say it's going to be a continuation of the path already laid out by previous administrations, plural, from Abe and most notably Kishida. And those two administrations, for the first time in Japanese post war history, made it possible by consensus for Japan to get equipped with long range attack capabilities
Mhm.
in the form of Tomahawk missiles and so on and so forth. And Sanae Takaichi is on course of implementing those ideas. What's changed is that Sanae Takaichi has made it clear that it's going to be the process is going to be accelerated to increase Japanese defense budget, which is going to be 2% as opposed to the nation's GDP. Previously, the idea was that Japan is going to spend some time, like 2 years, to reach that target. But Takaichi said within this fiscal year, namely by the end of March next year, that target should be fulfilled.
I see. There is talk of Japan going nuclear, especially with submarines. Now, is that likely to advance? I noticed that today a lot of Japanese submariners are women, and probably that's a legacy of Shinzo Abe, right?
Right. Again, this is not a new idea
Hmm.
Sanae Takaichi has chosen to push. At the end of the previous administration, Shigeru Ishiba's administration, there was an expert uh, council put together, and that expert council published a white paper arguing that sooner rather than later, Japan may need a new kind of submarine fleet uh, 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 propelled not by conventional uh, uh, engines, but by something new. They stopped short of naming the new engine like a nuclear powered one, but it's obvious that they're thinking about adopting
Hmm.
nuclear power to run the new kind of submarine fleet. Well, it's going to take years, but I think companies such as Mitsubishi Heavy, which is Japan's biggest defense contractor,
Yes.
has knowledge and technologies already to build nuclear powertrain and equipped it to equip the submarines with that powertrain.
Hmm.
So I think it's plausible.
Hmm.
And what's more important is that nuclear powered submarines would be effective and meaningful only when equipped with long range missile capacity. So, when it comes to deterrence capacities that Japan may have in the future, I think this is going to be one of those game changers.
Right. You already make such wonderful submarines. Those Soryu submarines of yours are really lethal machines. Uh, I suppose the fact that South Korea also seems to be looking in the nuclear direction would have an impact on Japanese thinking, would you not say?
I think it's going to have degree of impact, of course, on the thinking process of the Japanese policy planners. Look, our immediate neighbor is advancing faster than us. Let's just catch up. That's a sort of mode that would propel those defense planners to move ahead. That is, that Shinzo Abe had to work with the LDP's, Liberal Democratic Party's coalition partner.
Mhm.
That was a quasi Buddhist party
Right.
called Komeito. And that Komeito party has been proud of itself being an agent of peace, the advocate of peace. And the party's, let's say, foot soldiers, mostly women, uh, were very much keen on pursuing peace banner, peace agenda for Japan. And so with Komeito, anything bold as regards military buildup has been a hard sell. They wouldn't easily buy those ideas.
Hmm.
But uh, ironically and luckily, now Komeito has left the coalition, and Sanae Takaichi had to engineer herself to make another coalition with another different but similarly minded party called Japan Innovation Party.
Correct.
And only by forming a coalition with a new partner, Sanae Takaichi has been able to say something like uh, making achieving the 2% goal faster than scheduled, and then thinking about adopting nuclear powered submarines. So, yes, uh, that's another luck factor that has been beyond her own design, but that's been worked handsomely so far.
Is that so? Could I talk a little bit about Japan and your most important neighbor, China? Abe-san, in his last months, had several outreaches to Xi Jinping and to China. Unfortunately, he left too soon. Uh, has Tokyo lately been adjusting its positions vis-a-vis Beijing?
It appears to be the case because, particularly under the two previous administrations, the Japanese side continued to show its softer face to Beijing. There have been incidents such as Japanese schoolboy going to Japanese school was stabbed to death, and a lot of outburst of violence based on hate towards the Japanese has been uh, increasing as regards frequency. Despite those things, the Japanese government said very little about those incidents, and rather they have chosen to show, as I say, something softer to Beijing. And this is going to change. Uh, Sanae Takaichi is going to be willing to take up some of those issues and discuss straightforwardly with China. But at the same time, Ms. Takaichi knows very well how Shinzo Abe dealt with the same leader, Xi Jinping. That is to say, only after Shinzo Abe has secured an adequate amount of his own diplomatic and political capital,
Mhm.
he was able to speak on an equal footing base with Xi Jinping.
Mhm.
The lesson to be learned here is that the Chinese, and for that matter, the Russians as well, Xi Jinping, Vladimir Putin, those are the leaders who use the same language that is power. Only when you are strong, you can have a better relationship with China.
Mhm.
So Sanae Takaichi has a long way to go. She
Right.
has to win in Japan's domestic elections multiple times, and she has to win back majority in the parliament, and she has to do the kind of defense build up as she says she would like to do.
Mhm.
And then Xi Jinping um, will take Sanae Takaichi more seriously.
Is that so? Peace through strength, as they say. Uh, Tom, what about relations with wider Asia, particularly Southeast Asia? Japanese prime ministers have, since Abe-san, have tended to pay bilateral visits to Southeast Asia at the very beginning of their term. What about Sanae Takaichi? What would her attitude to Southeast Asia likely be?
In my view, ASEAN still hoists its banner of unity and centrality, and everyone has to respect that. And I think Sanae Takaichi is going to pay respect to that long-standing banner of unity and centrality. However, realistically speaking, there are more important countries than others. And recently, the Philippines have gained much, much more salience among
Hmm.
ASEAN nations, primarily because of the two factors. The new president, President Marcos, has brought the Philippines back into the orbit of the U.S. centric military order, and secondly, the Philippines very close to Taiwan. So the idea that's been that's been taking shape is to sandwich Taiwan from up north by Japan, from down south by the Philippines, two of the countries that maintain very good military to military relationships with the United States. Ideally, South Korea could join this. So Tokyo wishes to play a sort of multiplier role
Hmm.
by bringing South Korea, the Philippines, uh, and Japan together to the United States. So, in that sense, the Philippines have become more important. And I think the uh, diplomatic savvy uh, foreign service of India has detected this move. As you know, that the Indian military and the Philippines military have started joint exercises, and they're thinking of making it on a regular basis. So yes, the Philippines have gained much more salience compared to other nations. What's worrisome is Indonesia. Indonesia being the biggest nation, biggest as regards geography, as regards population, but most importantly as regards the Muslim population, has been a has been constantly among the biggest recipients of Japanese official development assistance.
Yes, of course.
For many years,
Absolutely.
Indonesia was the number one recipient of Japanese soft loan. However, if you look at what Indonesia has done of late, it's chosen to go with China when it comes to laying out high speed rail. It's chosen to buy advanced fighter aircraft from China. And that was a shocking sort of development for many in Tokyo.
Mhm.
So I think Tokyo is going to do much more in, let's say, speaking with Indonesian leaders and convince them that it would be important for Indonesia to play a leading role in this contested region by standing, let's say, firm against China. That's
Mhm.
exerting a coercive power in the South China Sea.
Right. Tom, you just brought up India, which was a country that was a focal point of Shinzo Abe's diplomacy. Now, I noticed that in a recent tweet, you did not seem to stress the Quad uh, yourself. Now, is the Quad dead in the water? Like Wang Yi said, he called it ocean foam.
Quad, when pursued by Shinzo Abe, represented the future in many ways. In the future, India would be greater economically than China. India has already outnumbered Chinese population, and India's consumer market is going to be bigger than any other country in the world, while India still is going to maintain its own brand of democracy.
Mhm.
So India will remain an ideal partner to work with for Japan. So that's a long term projection. Short term, Tokyo's stance towards India, I must say, has been very much murky, especially when Kishida was in office. He wanted to sort of dilute the core notion of free and open Indo Pacific by proposing an idea that FOIP for everyone.
Mhm.
Under Shinzo Abe, FOIP was all about China. It had a very sharp regional focus,
Mhm.
but Kishida wanted to dilute that concept, and his successor Ishiba
Mhm.
did the same.
Mhm.
So we must do both our own shares of effort. India must revisit its value because it seemed as if India under Narendra Modi was more interested in another Quad that was I two you two
Mhm.
rather than the Quad in the Indo-Pacific.
Right.
So India under Narendra Modi must find must revisit the value of Quad,
Right.
while Tokyo has to do much more
Right.
because Tokyo has sort of alienated India
Right.
by its own choice of policies.
Is that so? That's an interesting take. Tom, you started by talking about the importance of building up the economy for this prime minister. Now, I hear that she's more pro growth than pro fiscal prudence. Is that an accurate characterization of the new prime minister?
Very much accurate. And she said it rather interestingly, in an interesting way. The sin any political leader could commit and should not commit, may I say, is to leave behind an economy that is not going to grow, but that's been successful in making its own ends meet. Uh, what's desirable is an economy that grows. And by growth, the economy could uh, produce more revenue flows. And only with increased revenue tax flows, you could think about achieving fiscal prudence. And you could spend more on all sorts of uh, objects, welfare, science, and military education, and so on. So she is very pro growth. And for that matter, she is opposite to folks such as the previous prime ministers of Kishida and Ishiba, who were actually playing the playbook, textbook, if you like, of finance ministry. That's been single mindedly focused on reducing Japanese government debt.
Right, right. There's also this interesting increase in anti foreigner sentiments at a time when Japan has very slowly opened itself to immigration. Uh, do you think it could hurt the economy?
Well, it's too early to say, but public sentiment is very much important to take note. Uh, Two factors. One, Japan arguably has long been a country of cohesiveness
Mhm,
and a degree of homogeneity,
mhm,
and it's been changing. And the second factor is that the change is gaining tempo and pace more than any other time in recorded history.
true.
So those are the two things. And another way to look at this is to divide this issue into two: one about tourism and another about immigration.
Mhm,
Let's look at tourism.
mhm,
Japan has become a too cheap a country,
mhm.
and it's attracted an enormous number of tourists who may not necessarily be fitting into a classic category of foreigners that are rich and willing to spend more and willing to stay in posh hotels and spend lavishly for meal and so on. The tourists we're looking at are a new category, very much lower middle class, and they don't obey rules and regulations that Japan has. People in Japan have held dear. Some of them, I must say, some of them,
Right.
but it's become more noticeable.
Yes.
So there must be rational ways to tackle this issue, like raising the bar. Why wouldn't you uh, request that they should pay more when entering Japan? E visa must be more expensive. And as regards temples and shrines that are treasures of the Japanese, they could demand higher entry fees. So, economic ways of tackling over tourism uh, can be found, and one has to be creative in thinking about that. And that's a function of exchange rate. The other thing, immigration, and there are two things. Overall, one third of registered foreigners are Chinese. So when you think about immigrants in China, you're basically talking one third of it is uh, about the Chinese. So that's something unique to Japan because of its proximity. Second, there have been concentrations of Kurdish people in the outskirts of Tokyo, and that's been hitting social media sphere almost every day, and that's dropping jaws of many people. So uh, it's been very much a discussed and noticed phenomenon, which has actually propelled to creating a new unknown force of politics called Sanseito, and people say that's an ultra right. It's an overstatement, but it's still it's true to say that it reflects public anxiety about the rapidity and pace and tempo of the influx of people as immigrants from abroad.
Right. I always thought that the Chinese fondness for visiting Japan is actually a wonderful instrument of soft power for Tokyo. But the Kurd angle is really surprising to hear. Thanks for bringing it up. Tom, can you talk a little bit about Sanae Takaichi, the person? Uh, at the end of the day, you cannot separate her from her gender. And
Right.
I hear too that she is a devoted wife to her ailing husband. Is that all correct?
Well, not all correct, but the story is more complex as well as interesting.
Hmm.
She got married when she turned 40
Right.
with the man, and she chose to have divorce with that man. And after a while, she chose to remarry with the same man. So that's something that is, may I say, unique. And she acknowledges that she has never been interested in cooking, and she has never been interested in working in a kitchen. And the husband, first and the second, the same man, uh, sold himself, saying that he is a registered licensed cook, uh, while at the same time he is a member of the parliament. He was a member of the parliament. So uh, that was what propelled Sanae Takaichi to choose to marry with the same man. Apart from that, Sanae Takaichi is a self-made person. It's safe to say so. Unlike Shinzo Abe, unlike Taro Aso, that were born into families of politics, spoon-fed children, Sanae Takaichi was born into a working-class couple struggling with their own living, and so much so that when she was uh, 12, 13, 14 years old, she was told by her parents that if you choose to go to a local community college, we would support your college tuition. But if you choose to go something beyond, like 4 year full fledged university, we're not going to help support your education. So she chose to do a lot of part time jobs in her high school. And perhaps she worked very much diligently. She was able to buy a second hand Kawasaki 500 motorcycle. And that's a giant machine. And she drove that giant machine from her house home to her high school. And she was naughty girl in that sense. Teachers didn't like her riding a 500 Kawasaki every morning to her own school. Beyond that, in addition to that, she was a, uh, a drummer, and she was not a drummer for a soft genre of music because she liked heavy metal, and she still is fond of playing the drum set in her own home. So uh, uh, in a way, she educated herself, and she was actually smart, even after spending a lot of time working part-time basis and playing the drums and so on. She managed to enter two of the most respected universities, one Keio, which is the oldest private university, and another Kobe University that has a Nobel laureate. So I think she was smart in that sense. And something very much important came in her early 20s when she met the legendary founder of Panasonic, then called Matsushita. Mr. Matsushita uh, was her tutor, and she made up her mind to enter politics in her early 30s. That's what she did.
Right. I have a final question. Now that you have a woman prime minister in Japan, is it time now to consider an empress for Japan?
That's a very good question. I represent Nippon Kagi, which is one of the conservative lobbying groups, And the guiding principle for them is to stick to the male lineage, and they're very much royal and monarchist, by the way. And Sanae Takaichi, for Sanae Takaichi, this is one of those issues that she could not uh, back down from. She for this is among the most important issues for her. Uh, Japanese monarchy is the oldest in recorded history. I'm not exaggerating. It goes back to some 2,000 years ago. Compared it to British monarchy that began in the interwar period between the First and the Second World Wars. This is very much an ancient institution. Nothing, absolutely nothing to do modern democracy. So I know that young people, especially women in Japan, are scratching their heads, asking and wondering why it is always the male lineage. But it's almost like an old tree of 2,000 years, standing alone, pretty much isolated as a solitary being. And there are two schools of thought, if you like. One is to do as much as possible to make the life of tree as long as possible. And another would be to say, what's wrong with putting another new branch into the same tree? So there's a division. And at the moment, there's a growing consensus among political parties that the institution that's been in place for 2,000 years should be kept intact.
Well, Tomohiko Taniguchi, such a fascinating conversation. And I can't thank you enough for coming on Asian Insider.
Thank you very much, Ravi. I've enjoyed our discussion and conversation, and I wish to do it again and again in the future and not in the too distant future.
And that's a wrap for Asian Insider. I'm Ravi Veloor. Do not forget to share this podcast with your friends and family. And if you'd like to read my articles, we have links in our podcast show notes below. You can also sign up for our Asian Insider newsletter. Thank you for joining us.